guys, Benjamin and Mason are taking a bath, and so I thought I'd hop on and read chapter 10. Okay, so at the end of chapter 9, the lady from the county education department stopped in, and Ida told her the truth. Ida told her that she wasn't really the teacher and that she was in the 8th grade, and asked if they could still keep going on and having school. So let's see what happens in chapter 10. In the days following Miss Sagewick's visit, the children often discussed in worried terms what the county inspector might do. Then, when the women did not return, their anxiety faded. Ida tried to put it out of her mind, too, but with less success. She realized now that she couldn't be satisfied if just she and Tom passed their tests. She had an obligation to make sure that everyone did well. In a few days after that realization, Ida sat at her desk and tried to take the students' measures while they worked quietly. Mary was behind in reading. Natasha was ahead. Should she review Natasha's progress before allowing her to go on to the next higher level? Or should she concentrate on Mary? Herbert continued to be absent a lot, and he didn't work much when he was there. He was slipping farther and farther behind. She tried to help him, but he was the only one in the class who didn't seem interested in learning. Charlie was not achieving much either. Ida was not sure why, but there he was every day, struggling. As for Flex, he was trying hard to succeed for his sister. Fortunately, too, he was flourishing. Ida was super grateful. And Tom, he was working steadily, waiting, she knew, to do well, wanting, she knew, to do well in her eyes. But she had become more his teacher and less his friend. It didn't feel right, as Ida didn't know what to do about it. She picked up a grammar exercise that Natasha had done. Even as she looked at it, red marking pencil in hand, she thought of her own studies. She was slipping behind. The problem was, there was so little time for herself. Each day ended with her getting home late, doing her chores, eating dinner, and grading schoolwork. Only then did she do her own studying, at least until she could no longer keep her eyes open. Every day seemed the same, and every day was growing more and more exhausting, and further behind. Could she... Oh, goodness. Could she be content if Tom passed and moved on to high school while she stayed back? Her mind continued wandering until she noticed that Tom was raising his hand. Yes, Tom. Miss Bison, I'm having trouble with this, he said, holding up a reader. Ida went to his bench and took her old place beside him. Tom, grinning shyly, slid his reader over. It was open to an excerpt of Shakespeare from the play Julius Caesar. I don't think I get it, Tom said. Ida stared at the passage. Friends, Romans, countrymen, it began. Lend me your ear. It was a memory passage required of every 8th grader. In fact, Ida had heard it so often she had it memorized in the 5th grade. How, she wondered, could Tom not know it? He must be trying to get my attention, she thought, and didn't know whether to be pleased or annoyed. How, Tom asked, can you lend your ear to someone? Ida read, and then reread the passage to herself. Tom waited patiently. I suppose, she said finally, if cautiously, said, it means he just wants them to listen. Oh, that's all? Ida slid the book back to him. Do you think? She asked. You're the teacher, he said. What you say goes. Ida blushed and then rose from the bench and returned to her desk. The next morning, an hour before dawn, Ida heard her mother calling up to the ladder. Ida, honey, it's past milking time. Ida bolted up. Before she climbed down the ladder, she glanced at Flex, still asleep. He looked so peaceful, she thought with a twinge of envy. Wearing a pair... No, it's called the Secret School. Wearing a pair of her father's rubber boots, she went to a barn. A low burning lantern hung from the small peg. Crisp air clouded her breath. The air was thick with the smell of cow and sheep. Sitting on a spool with her mother's shawl over her thin dress, Ida pressed her face against the rough, warm belly of Bluebell and milked her. As Ida squirted the milk into the pail rhythmically, she thought of all the problems that lie before her. But the big problem was that she was so tired. Teaching was much more exhausting than she ever thought it would be. She wanted to be young again like Flex. Flex was content to do what he was told and was capable of plodding on cheerfully, eager for hard work or fun, no matter which. Suddenly, Bluebell slapped Ida in the face with his wet tail. With a start, Ida looked up. There was light in the sky. She really was late and filthy. Pail in hand, she ran for the house, tripped, landing on her knees in the mud. The milk sloshed away, wasted. Oh, Ida said when she went into the sheep barn to tell her father what had happened. I'm no good at anything. Her father sighed and gave her a hug. I suppose I could tell you everything's going to be all right, he said, but you're too old for that. Ida, to her own surprise, felt stung by that remark. What's going to happen? She asked. Happen? To me? Honey, her father said, think of what you're trying to do. The work around here, you're teaching, moving on with your own studies, and I guess just being yourself. You've taken on a whole lot. Spilling the milk was an accident. Sure it was, but you were rushing. You've got too much on your mind. Lord knows living around here is a full-time job. Lambing, spring shearing coming up, coaling, fence work, cooking, cleaning, fixing, planning. I ain't ever done. Should I stop teaching? I asked in a small voice. Sweetheart, when you choose a hard way, it's going to be hard. No harm in admitting a mistake. But I want to go to high school, Ida cried. Ida, I'm going to remind you again that that's not a for sure thing. Even if you did get in, we'd need to find you a place to board. You know we might not have the money. Ida hung her head. Ida, love, it's never mean to tell the truth. She said nothing. Ida, he went on gently, a hand on her shoulder, her head still bowed. How do you want to be treated? Like a kid or a grown-up? The question startled her, and so, even more. Turn the page. Struggling here, hold on. Did her lack of ready answer. She looked up into her father's face. It was the same as always, but for the first time she saw a hint of sadness in it. I don't know, she confessed softly. Honey, that makes two of us, he said. Ida pulled herself away and gathered up the empty milk pail. In the barn, she carefully washed it out and then turned it upside down to drain dry. Her father would scowl it later. Back in the house, she went up to the loft and dressed herself for school. Then she woke up Flex. They were leaving. They were late in leaving. Flex tried to talk, but Ida kept shushing him and hurrying him along. Got to play in the day, she snapped. Her head ached. By the time they drove up to the school, everybody except Herbert was there. Someone had already gone through the window and opened up the door. Ida rushed inside. On her desk was an apple. Seeing it, she stopped short, overcome with a flood of emotions. Leaving an apple was something she had done for her teachers. Did that mean, despite her faults, her tiredness, they thought she was doing a good job? The day began with the usual flag raising. Then just before the lesson started, Ida said, Someone left me an apple. Thank you. May I ask who it was? At first no one raised their hand. Then rather bashfully, Tom did. Ida felt herself blush. Of all the people in the room, the one person she didn't want thinking of her as a teacher was Tom. She doesn't even like apples, Flex blurted out. Flex, Ida cried. Everyone laughed. Ida stammered another thank you. Then with a start, she realized the class was waiting for her to begin. Susie Spool, she asked, "Will you lead us in a song?" Okay, it's the end of chapter 10. Next is chapter 11. We're getting well over halfway done. I hope you guys are liking the story. Today's question is going to be, how do you think you could handle that pressure? How do you think you could handle having a full-time job and having chores and cleaning and milking a cow and helping around on a farm and having really 2 or 3 full-time jobs while still being a kid? Okay? Can't wait to see your answers. I love you guys. Bye.